Response. I do want to cross over to our foreign affairs correspondent Abhishek Jha to get us some more details on the entire G20. Abhishek, what I wanted to ask you is that considering that the working session on food and energy security is going on right now, what exactly actually do you think the Prime Minister is going to highlight when it comes to India's role in food and energy security and health as well?
Aisha, India's role as the next presidency will be very important because this is coming at a time when we are seeing a lot of geopolitical tensions happening. In fact, this one G20 that is currently happening in Bali is, if we go back a little, then it will be remembered as one of the most strained G20 summit that ever took place so far because of the clear divide that we can see about in the Western Bloc and the Russian President Vladimir Putin himself is not arriving at the venue of Bali. So it's a kind of miss that President of Russia has given to it. However, the good point was that at least the USA President Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, the Chinese Premier, they have had a talk yesterday evening, and that is kind of a major highlight that we can take from this summit because of the last 2-3 years of cold vibe that these two nations and leaders were giving to each other amidst all those conflicting scenarios that could have emerged from the Taiwanese Strait crisis in the first week of August. This meeting actually paved way for a very a composed and calmer scenario in the bilateral relationship between USA and China, which can actually have an impact on the global geopolitical order. So that is one thing that we can have take away from here. But now the world leaders are also trying to discuss about the latest issues that have emerged in the last few years at the world stage, including the health infrastructural issue of sustainable development goal, issue of climate crisis, energy transition is one of the key issues. Food security, ensuring food availability for all and at an affordable price is one of the key concerns that the world leaders are going to discuss here. Availability of fertilizers and also dependence at this era of globally interconnected world. There is a lot of interdependency on each other. So if one incident or one conflict happens in one part of the world that we have seen in terms of Russia-Ukraine conflict, it has its impact all across the world. So how to insulate the other part of the world from a small skirmish or a small crisis that is happening at one part of the world is also one of the area that leaders might like to discuss and think about how to deal with such crisis that if it happens ever in future.
Absolutely. Abhishek, there was some interesting information coming out about how Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, was hospitalized. This was said by Indonesian officials. But then Russia came out to say that this was fake news. Now, Lavrov is slated to hold a press conference today. Could you clarify what exactly that situation was?
Talking about yesterday evening, there was a lot of rumor and then rumor mongering and then, puncturing those narratives. From the Western media, because the Russian side said clearly that Western media is trying to become a fakery, trying to propagate fakery. And they have also, in fact, Russia has always alleged that Western media, all the press, all the wire agencies have always been sided along with the states. And they have always tried to create fake news, establish fake narratives and show the leaders of Russia in a poor light. So this is what Russian side has alleged. And soon after the reports came that Sergei Lavrov was rushed to a hospital immediately after landing in Bali, Russian side also issued a video within hours that where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was seen sitting in his casual and leafing through some papers or documents. He looked very sound, didn't look any disturbed, but that narrative that was started on yesterday, maybe it will be very difficult to verify the authenticity, whether Lavrov was really admitted to a hospital, because Associated Press has quoted some Indonesian officials saying, but they have not named any official that who all said that Sergei Lavrov was admitted, because we have seen Sergei Lavrov deboarding the flight, and then he was like moving normally, he was walking normally. He actually stopped for a while to greet people who were dancing in front of him, to extend him the traditional welcome that Indonesian people are extending all the world leaders who are reaching to Bali. So probably we'll never be able to know what has happened yesterday evening, but today finally Sergei Lavrov is at the venue where the leaders summit is taking place and the discussions are taking place.
Absolutely, Abhishek. All right, thank you so much for that information. I do want you to stay with us because we're being joined by our guest, Patikrit Payne, who is a geopolitical analyst and security analyst as well. Mr. Payne, thank you so much for joining CNN News 18 while we cover the 17th G20 Leaders Summit. What I wanted to ask you about was the bilateral that was held between Biden and Xi Jinping. Essentially, one big statement that was coming out is that Xi Jinping had warned Joe Biden about Taiwan, saying, "Don't cross the red line." How do you see that entire bilateral that took place?
Well, so far as this bilateral is concerned, it's good that these two leaders are talking to each other. But let's understand both of them are coming here after winning almost literally respective mandates in their own country in the recent past. For example, Xi Jinping got the third term. Biden almost, if not entirely decimated by the Republicans, been able to hold on to the Senate. So both sides will try their best not to cede any ground to the other. We know that Xi Jinping has literally, asked the army to prepare for a war. Come what may, a lot of people might say, even I also believe that given the track record of United States, both in case of Afghanistan and what is happening in Ukraine, the people have wondered whether they would come to the rescue of Taiwan or not. But Taiwan is a very different issue for a specific reason. The reason being that 66% of the global supply chain of semiconductors is controlled by Taiwan. Now, if Taiwan falls in the hand of China, literally every critical electronics components from the highest end to the lowest end, which we use, will completely get controlled by the Chinese because they run on chips. So I think that in spite of irrespective of whatever the Chinese say, the Americans would continue to support Taiwan. I would love to see that Taiwan gets the kind of same weapon systems that America is now literally giving free of cost to Ukraine. And the Chinese know that in case Taiwan is joined by United States, then the situation and the equation in case of a conflict completely changes. So these warnings, veiled threats are being given out. But I don't think that will impact in any way the bipartisan policy of the United States in terms of coming to the aid of Taiwan as and when and if something happens. Because countries like Japan or Australia, with whom also United States have security pact, keep an eye on what United States does in case of Taiwan. Because the apprehension in countries like Japan is this: that if Taiwan falls, the next target of China or Beijing would be Japan itself, at least the Senkaku Islands. So I don't think, in spite of all these warnings, anything will change. Both countries would stick to their ground. So far as the tensions are concerned, they remain profound as it were. But at least when you talk, that gives some kind of a leverage, some kind of at least even a fraction of a melting point. It does help. So I think they should keep on talking, the top leadership.
Now, Mr. Payne, we did have a statement from China's foreign ministry. Essentially, they said that China and the United States need to put the relationship on the right course and bring it back to the track of healthy and stable growth to the benefit of the two countries and the world as a whole. Now, isn't this statement highly significant considering the fact that over the last few months, there's been a lot of tension between the two nations, specifically over Taiwan?
Yes, the concern of China emanates from the fact that United States have passed some very, very critical and stringent legislations which restricts the transfer of technology or sharing of technology in the realm of semiconductors or other high-end technologies with Chinese organizations. They have put several restrictions on almost 70 to 80 Chinese companies which were operating in United States. They have put, there's a Xinjiang Act which has been passed, which completely prohibits, any kind of import of materials from Xinjiang, where allegedly slave labor is being used. So these things are literally hurting the Chinese economy. At the same time, we have to understand. So the overtures that are being made by the Chinese in some kind of talking, in terms of talking the stabilization of the economies of both sides, are primarily because of these. But if we